Richard Jefferson, ESPN NBA Analyst, Yes Network, Nets Analyst, NBA Champ with the Cavs, joining us from Milwaukee. Richard, thanks for joining us. I was just talking to the Danettes about shooting underhand. If I had said to Shaq or some of these other players who struggle, hey, you can make 75% of your free throws, but you got to shoot underhand. How many guys do you think would be willing to do that in a game?
I think I don't know. I think it takes more courage to do that because I think you're already having to deal with people making fun of you because you shoot 58% and you're going, bricking every free throw. So, it's just all about self-confidence in those moments because, you're going to make 75, but you actually might get more heat than you will from just shooting normal free throws.
But isn't that interesting that you would rather be embarrassed in a different way than, like if I'm going to be embarrassed, I'd rather be embarrassed in succeeding than in failure.
Yeah, that was the ultimate conversation between Billy Hoyle and Sidney Dean. He's like, I know who you are. You'd rather look good and play bad than play bad and look good.
A white men can't jump reference there. All right.
Yeah.
So you had firsthand great view, front row seat when LeBron had his chase down block on Andre Iguodala in the NBA Finals, and then you were there last night with what Giannis did to DeAndre Ayton. Better block to you was which one?
Very different. I think Giannis's block in game one was closer because it was the same. It was a chase down. The difference is it's what makes both of those blocks so special and so unique is the time in which they happened, right? The time in which they happened, the moment in the game, the moment in the series. So if we're talking about, a more impressive block, it's definitely Braun because it meant more the time of it a minute to go in a game 7, down 3-1, all that stuff. If you're talking about how many people on the planet could go do what somebody did, then that's the Giannis block because there's only maybe 2 players that can be backtracking, hand up, turn around, see the lob, go up 1-2, go get it against the number 1 pick that's 7 feet and athletic DeAndre Ayton. It was technically perfect, and it was physically only 3 people in the world can do that. So it's like the combination is what made that so special.
What was the huddle like after LeBron had that block against Iguodala?
I kid you not. After the 7 games and all this other stuff, that was the first time I thought, oh, we're going to win this. I kid you not, because it was back and forth, and everyone knows, and everyone's talked about that game, and it's one of the more dissected series. But it was like that was the first moment where I was like, oh, wait, we're going to win this. Because it was like now the time was running out. Now it was becoming a 1-2 possession game. We had the ball, and it was like, okay, what are we going to draw up? What are we going to do? Because at that moment we had control. It becomes like that. It becomes that free throw time game, and you can look and see like, well, even if we miss and they score, we're going to get a second chance. So like we're in control right now. This is the first time in the entire series that we were in control, and it was like a minute to go.
Did LeBron say anything in the huddle?
No, I think that's when they were talking about trying to get the ball to Kyrie, trying to get Steph on him. That was the difference for us, is trying to get Steph in more pick and rolls because the Warriors' defense was so impeccable with Draymond, helming it, and Andre and those guys, and Clay. You have 3 basically all first-team defenders on that roster. And so trying to get Steph in it, not that, Steph led the league in steals. It's not that Steph can't play defense, but that was one of the small advantages that you might have. And so got Kyrie, and the rest was history.
Dame Lillard tweeted in real time last night after the Giannis block that Giannis just won the game for them, even though there was a little over a minute to go. I'm always curious what happens after a big play, or somebody gives up a home run, or somebody gets a long touchdown pass. That to me, where it kind of it's you just took a punch from Tyson, because you're like, wait a minute, we were going to tie this up with a dunk, and it could have gone the other way, Richard. Whereas like we just dunked on the Greek Freak, and now there's momentum with Phoenix there, and you just survived a questionable call with Devin Booker not getting called for the foul against Holiday. I don't know. We'd be talking a whole different game today if Phoenix had won that. And we would be looking back on that dunk in a different way.
100%. And it's like, you know what I'm wondering? Where's all that conversation now about, oh, Scott Foster and, oh, questionable foul calls? And it's like, wait a second. I want the same people that were complaining about Giannis's 17 free throws when nobody else on his team shot more than 3, and you're questioning the officiating. Now all of a sudden, you're a guy that's got 40 points, you're all NBA guy, you're Olympian, should have fouled out on the road and didn't. If you're going to complain about the officials here, recognize that this goes both ways. That's why I put very little stock unless it's overly glaring. And I'm not talking about an overall record when one referee coaches one player. No, I'm not talking about any of that nonsense. I'm talking about overall there are things that go both ways for you when you add human error or mistakes into those situations. But, yeah, we would be looking at this series very, very differently. But the key thing about what people don't understand is that it's momentum, and it's momentum within quarters. It's momentum within games, and it's momentum within series. So that play gave them the momentum in the game because it was so much late. So it was, one and change. And then it gave them momentum in the series. So there's like a domino effect, and now it's their job to maintain it, and it's Phoenix's job to slow it down.
He's Richard Jefferson, ESPN NBA Analyst, joining us from Milwaukee. What is it like when you're guarding a star and you didn't do anything, but you still get whistled for a foul?
You know what? It's expected. It's expected. That there's part of your role, and depending on who you are, there's guys like T.J. Tucker, Patrick Beverley, guys that are known as defensive players that they'll get away with more. They'll get away with more than other defensive players. Draymond Green's one of them. But when you're guarding those guys, you have to understand, ever since we were 12 years old, you try your best and someone's just better, right? It doesn't matter if you're in college. It doesn't matter if you're in high school or when you get to the pros. Like, I had to guard Kevin Durant in the finals. You know who else I've had to guard in the finals? Kobe Bryant. Not a lot of fun, guys. Not a lot of fun, right? There's certain days where you're like, well, screw it. I tried.
Okay,
right?
who would you rather guard? Who would you rather guard out of those two at their peak?
I don't know, because for Kobe, there was something about it where it's like he wanted to take your soul, so you felt like it wasn't like he just wanted to score on you. He also wanted to look you in the eye while he was doing it. Where like Kevin Durant, you're like, well, there's nothing I can do. Like just the physical like attributes that this guy has on 2K wouldn't even be allowed.
But Durant doesn't do any talking. I'm sure Kobe was talking.
Exactly, but this is what I'm saying. Kevin Durant is more unguardable than Kobe, right? He's more unguardable, and that's like Kobe was a ridiculous offensive weapon, but understand this, and I'm not talking trash about Kobe. Of all the top 5 scorers, he was the least efficient, so he took the most shots. Mm-hmm. I think he missed more shots than anybody in NBA history. He took more shots to get to those points, where Kevin Durant is one of the most efficient scorers I don't even think he's in the top 10. Eventually he'll be in all those numbers, but he's one of the most efficient guys, especially from the perimeter, to be on that list. So it's like, how do you want it? Do you want a guy that's going to shoot 35 shots and try and take your soul, or do you want a guy that's going to shoot 18 shots and you're just like, he doesn't miss. This guy just doesn't miss. What do you want me to do?
Do you hold a beef against anybody, a grudge? Are you mad at anybody that you played against?
If I do, I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it, because any beef that I have, a lot of it had to do with less about basketball and more about, and because like basketball beef is kind of like it's a playing, like I can't stand Shane Battier and Jay Will because they beat me when I was in the national championship game. But anything that like gets past that, if there's any real beef, is because there was something that was probably a line that was crossed, and we'll just keep those between the lines.
Are you, when you lose that game, is Jay Will, is he allowed to brag to you? Like, how often does that come up where somebody goes, remember the national title game? Or I bring it up 9 times out of 10 when we're around each other. So, because it does, it validates me being mean to him, or me cracking jokes with him, or me just, messing with him a little bit. But no, man, it's a competitive thing. It really is. Like, there are people that you still like genuinely, you're just like, look, I'll be professional, especially in this industry now that we're in the broadcast booth. I'll be professional. But there's always going to be beefs that never leave.
that's just part of what's ingrained in us.
I also, one thing I've been bringing up all morning long is if I factor in where Giannis was a couple of weeks ago, where he had that hyperextended knee, Richard, and, I had guys who had Channing Frye said, I don't think he plays again. Like, I've had that injury. It's 6 weeks. The fact that he had that injury and he did what he did last night and what he's doing in the finals, I don't know if people have truly talked about that. Even if you don't have the injury to do what he did last night, and then you factor in the injury, and they had the wherewithal to go, I'm going to go up there and try to get this, and then actually get that block. You got to factor in the knee.
Well, you have to, but it was like the first game you can see that he was still just testing it out. And him testing out his knee was 20 and 15, right? And then once he felt comfortable with his knees, like, all right, it's time to go to work. And that was just the confidence. Is his knee probably 100%? But I'm not going to talk about a knee when you've gone back-to-back 40-point games. I refuse to talk about your knee. I'll applaud you. I'll recognize the fact that you did that after missing a week, but I'm not going to. And you know what's crazy is sometimes when you have that type of injury, and this is not a positive, but you have to find the silver lining. The rest of your body gets rested. You look at Chris Paul in this series, or in the last 5 games, he went from like 41 to 33 to 22 to 19 to whatever he had last night. Every single game, he's gotten worse statistically, including the turnovers from last game. So you look at it, and you can see statistically, it looks like he's wearing down. Where all of a sudden you get Giannis a week break where the rest of his body can relax, his muscles can recover, all of the things. And don't forget, he's called the Greek Freak. At 26 years old, you can literally stab yourself in the leg with a knife, pull it out, then watch it heal in real time. That's what happens when you're that young, and especially when you're a physical specimen like him.
We don't recommend that, by the way, for anybody who's
no. Only Giannis can do that. Well, I'm not. This is a scientific experiment. It's been proven. There's like 8 guys in history that can heal that quickly.
All right, Monty Williams has a decision to make on what you do with Chris Paul, because I do love the Bucks and Drew Holiday picking him up 3/4 court and making him work a little bit more. So, what kind of pressure is Chris Paul facing here this next game?
He's facing a ton, and we'll go into the archives and I'll give you an example. My first year in Cleveland, I'm an idiot. My first year in San Antonio, we played against Jason Kidd, and he was with Dallas. They were the 2 seed, and Jason Kidd was an older point guard, very similar. You would never dare pick up Chris Paul. You would never dare pick up Jason Kidd. But once you pick those guys up, right? Because a lot of times you give them that respect, but once you pick them up, they view it as disrespect, but they don't have the same motor at 32 and at 28. So now all of a sudden you see them wearing down. And what's so crazy is that he's wearing down with 2 days rest. And we're going to say wearing down. We're going to say wearing down because God knows we don't want to say, is Chris Paul getting nervous? Is Chris Paul just squeezing on too tight? Because we've seen this before. We've seen this over the course of his career, to be so close to the mountaintop, so close to the conference finals, so close to the NBA finals, now so close to a championship, and all of a sudden you start to see some weird things, like some of these turnovers. Like, these weren't wearing down. These were turnovers that were very uncharacteristic of a person of his caliber at the highest of moments. So don't be surprised if over the next 48 hours you start to hear, is Chris Paul getting nervous? Is Chris Paul starting to become Clipper Chris Paul? Is it starting to become Houston Chris Paul? That's what you're going to start hearing over the next 48 hours. So Chris Paul has a lot to think about and digest, and I think all of the pressure falls on the Phoenix Suns in this moment.
Great stuff, Richard. We appreciate your time. Safe travels. Thanks for joining us.
Dan, such a huge fan, man. Thanks for having me. I got to give a shout out to my guy, Sully. He was excited when he found out that I was going to be on your show.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Sully. Richard Jefferson, the Mothership analyst and, yes, network analyst with the Nets. Also won a championship with LeBron.